Good morning, America. Today is Thursday, March the 23rd. It is 12:24. We need to finish Psalm 78. We stopped at 34 or 33, and it has 72 verses in it. So we're going to continue that and finish it off. Again, this particular psalm talks about God's mercifully guides his stubborn and rebellious people despite their behavior. That is the mercy of God. You can see it in this chapter. You can hear it in this chapter. So let's continue with, I'm going to repeat verse 33, which is black for sin. And I will be using both Bibles. Yeah, we will be using both Bibles. Not completely, but most of it. Okay? From the Old Testament, it says, therefore, verse 33 of Psalm 78, therefore their days did he, our Lord, consume in vanity, and their years in trouble. Okay? Whether it be something good that has happened on earth or it be something bad, it is all of God. And we have a lot of things going on in this world today. First timers. This is first timers, and we have things that are just continuing to get worse and worse and worse. And this is what I was trying to tell you about the wrath of God. It can be slow. It can come quickly. It can be mind-blowing, and we are in the wrath of God. And this is why you see so much going on in our world. You have the bombings in Texas. You have the unusual weather. All of those things are controlled by God. So he is obviously not happy with this generation, and he is showing it to us little by little. All right? So therefore their days did he consume in vanity, and their years in trouble. Yellow is for verse 34 and 35. And here it says, So he ended their days in fertility and their years in terror. This is what we are experiencing now. Terror. For a package to show up at your door and it just blows up, that is called terror. Okay. 34 says, when he slew them, then they sought him, and they returned and inquired early after God. 35 is still yellow for your faith, and they remembered that God was their rock and the high God their Redeemer. 34, whenever God slew them, they would seek him. They eagerly turned to him again. 34, 35, they remembered that God was their rock, that God Most High was their Redeemer. 36 and 37. We are back to black. Nevertheless, they did flatter him with their mouth, and they lied unto him with their tongues. 37, still black. For their heart was not right with him, neither were they steadfast in his covenant. That means they would behave for a little while, and then because they were not really following God, they would fall back into sin quicker than they did before. So this vicious cycle will go on and on and on and on and on. Okay, let's read it from here. But then they would flatter him with their mouths, lying to him with their tongue. 37, their hearts were not loyal to him. They were not faithful to his covenant. 38 and 39 is olive for commandment. As I told you, olive is something that we must follow. It is not something that we have a choice about it. And it says, but he, our Lord, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquities and destroyed them not. Yea, many a times turned he his anger away and did not stir up all his wrath. 39, still Allah for commandment. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passes away and cometh not again. 38 from here. Yea, he was merciful. He forgave their iniquities and did not destroy them. Time after time he restrained his anger and did not stir up his full wrath. 39. He remembered that they were but flesh, a passing breeze that does not return. 40 to 51 is all black. Pay attention. How often did they provoke him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert? Exclamation mark. How often? Many. Many times. 41. Yea, they turned back and tempted God and limited the Holy One of Israel. 42. They remembered not his hand nor the day when he delivered them from the enemy. They've forgotten all about that. 43. How he had warped his signs in Egypt and his wonders into fear of Zoan. 44. And had turned their rivers into blood and their floods that they could not drink. 45. He sent divers sorts of flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs, which destroyed them. 46. He gave also their increase unto the caterpillar, and their labor unto the locust. That means that the crops were eaten by the caterpillars, and I'm spitting a lot today. And their labor was in vain, because it was also given to the locusts. We have had several years of bad crops in this generation. I mean, those crops looked bad, looked like the 7 sickly cows. I mean, it was a total loss to the farmers. And that's to be expected, because we are not following the rules God gave us. This applies to all farmers. You are not supposed to farm your land and continuously year after year after year after year after year after year. It is not biblical. It is written in the book that farmers are to, on the 7th year, they are not even to tilt the land. Whatever grows on the land, let it grow. And whatever grows, let it be for the poor. So the poor man on the 7th year is supposed to be able to come upon your property, whether you're growing collard greens, corn, whatever your crop is, and they're supposed to pick. They're supposed to pick from that land all that they can find that is good for them to eat, and the owner is supposed to do the same. Pick whatever he can use for himself, but not tilt the land, because the land is supposed to rest. Okay? But if you do it your way and continue to tilt that land every year without giving it a rest, then you deserve a bad crop year. Okay? You deserve no rain for that year. The same thing with the waterways. That water should be rested every 7 years. Not one fisherman should be allowed to go in there and grab anything. And you know, these big industry, they don't go and fish 1 or 2 crops. They take thousands and thousands out of the sea, never considering that they need to let the sea rest so that it can repopulate. And what does God do? He punishes us. He allows the oil wells to spill upon their oceans, to spill upon and kill much of the sea life, making it useless for us to eat. Okay? All right, so he also gave their increase to the caterpillars and their labor unto the locusts. 47, he destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees were frost. 48, he gave up their cattle also to the hail, and their flocks to hot thunderbolts. 49, he cast upon them the fierceness of his anger, wrath, and indignation. Those are words to describe his anger. All right? And trouble by sending evil angels among them. Those are the ones that are committing these hideous acts. Okay? Bombings here, destroying churches here. Yes. Yes. Okay, 50. He made a way to his anger. He spared not their soul from death, but gave their life over to the pestilence. 51. And smoked all the firstborn in Egypt, the chief of their strength in the tabernacle of Ham. So let's take it from 40 here. How often they rebelled against him in the desert and grieved him in the wasteland. Exclamation mark. 41. Again and again they put God to the test. They vexed the Holy One of Israel. 42. They did not remember his power the day he redeemed them from the oppressor. 43. The day he displayed his marvelous miraculous signs in Egypt, his wonders in the region of Zoan. 44, he turned their rivers to blood. They could not drink from their streams. 45, he sent swarms of flies that devoured them and frogs that devastated them. 46, he gave their crops to the grasshopper, their products to the locust. 47, he destroyed their vines with hail and their sycamore figs with sleet. 48, he gave over their cattle to the hail, their livestock to bolts of lightning. 49, he unleashed against them his hot anger, his wrath, indignation, and hostility, a band of destroying angels. 50, he prepared a path for his anger. He did not spare them from death, but gave them over to the plague. 51, he struck down all the firstborn of Egypt, the first fruits of mankind in the tents of Ham. 52 to 53 is green for love. But made his own people to go forth like sheep and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. 53, and he led them on safely so that they feared not, but the sea overwhelmed their enemies. 53, he guided them safely so they were not afraid, but the sea engulfed their enemies. 52. But he brought his people out like a flock. He led them like sheep through the desert. 52, he guided them safely so they were unafraid, but the sea engulfed their enemies. 54 and 55 is blue for your salvation. And he brought them back to the border of his sanctuary, even to this mountain which his right hand had purchased. 55, he cast out the heathen. Heathens, what are heathens? Those are non-Jews. There are two types of people on this land. There are those that are Jews, and there are those that are non-Jews. They are either called Gentiles or heathen. It is not a bad word. It simply means that you are not a Jew, as I am a heathen or Gentile, because I am not a Jew. Okay? He cast out the heathen also before them and divided them an inheritance by line and made the tribes of Israel to dwell in their tents. Let's take it here. 54. Thus he brought them to the border of his holy land, to the hill country his right hand had taken. 55, he drove out nations before them and allotted their lands to them as an inheritance. He settled the tribes of Israel in their home. 55, 56, 57, and 58 is brown for Satan. Yet they tempted, here we go again, and provoked the Most High and kept not his testimonies. 57, but turned back and dwelt dealt unfaithfully like their fathers. They were turned aside like a deceitful bow. 58, for they provoked him to anger with their high places and moved him to jealousy with their graven images. Let's take it from here. 56, but they put God to the test and rebelled against the Most High, and they did not keep his statutes. 57, like their fathers, they were disloyal and faithless, as unreliable as a faulty bow. 58, they angered him with their high places. They aroused his jealousy with their idols. 59 to 66 is black for sin. Pay attention. When God heard this, he was warped and greatly abhorred Israel. Abhor means to hate. He began to hate the people he rescued. I can only imagine how he feels about this generation. I can only imagine. Okay? Verse 60, so he forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent which he placed among men. 61, and delivered his strength unto captivity, and his glory unto the enemy's hand. He handed them over to their enemies. Literally. He gave, 62, he gave his people over also unto the sword, and was warped with his inheritance. 63, the fire consumed their young men, and their maidens were not given unto marriage. 64, their priests fell by the sword, and their widows made no lamentation. 65, then the Lord awakened as one out of a sleep, and like a mighty man that shouteth by reason of wine. 66, and he smote his enemies in the hinder parts. He put them to a perpetual reproach. What does perpetual mean? Everlasting. Everlasting. That's what perpetual means. It's an everlasting forevermore. So when you wake up, you're not in a perpetual sleep. When you don't wake up and you end up in a coffin, that is your perpetual sleep. It's everlasting. Your time here on earth is over. Okay? So let's take it from 59. For those who have a hard time understanding the first reading, this will make it easier for you to understand. When God heard this, he was very angry. He rejected Israel completely. 60. He abandoned the tabernacle of Shalom, the tent he had set up among men. 61. He set the ark of his might unto captivity, his splendor unto the hand of the enemy. 62. He gave his people over to the sword. He was very angry with his inheritance. 63. Fire consumed their young men, and their maidens had no wedding songs. 64. Their priests were put to the sword, and their widows would not weep. 65. Then the Lord awakened as from sleep, as a man awakes from the slumber of wine. 66. He beat back his enemies. He put them to everlasting shame. 67. Then he rejected the tents of Joseph. He did not choose the tribe of Ephraim. 68. But he chose the tribe of Judah, Mount Zion, which he loved. 69. He built his sanctuary like the heights, like the earth that he established forever. Oh, okay. We went past 66. Okay, let's do 67 here, which is pink for witnessing. Moreover, he refused the tabernacle of Joseph and chose not the tribe of Ephraim. 68 is green for love, but chose the tribe of Judah, the Mount Zion, which he loved. 69, which is the one we was reading for salvation. It is blue, and he built his sanctuary like high palaces, like the earth which he has established forever. 70, 71, and 72 are the last three verses, and they are read for discipleship. I will read it from here first. He chose David also his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds 71, from following the elf great with young, he brought him to feed Jacob his people and Israel his inheritance. 72, so he fed them according to the integrity of his heart and guided them by the skillfulness of his hand. So let's close it off with here. He chose David, his servant, and took him from the sheep pen. 71, from tending the sheep, he brought him to be the shepherd of his people Jacob, of Israel his inheritance. 72, and David shepherded them with integrity of heart, with skillful hands he led them. So among all the brethren of David, which Jesse, his father, thought would be excellent king, maybe because of their statues, their demeanor, even though the father looked upon his sons and saw that all of them were good enough to be king. While Samuel stood there, Samuel did not accept any of the sons that were there. And one thing about God, when he sends you somewhere to obtain something, a wise servant, like Samuel was, would not return from there because he knows that he has been sent there for a reason. So instead of leaving, the next wise thing would be to ask Jesse, do you have any more sons? That was the question. Do you have any more sons? And Jesse said, yes, there's one out tending to the sheep. So Samuel said, I cannot leave until he arrives. So when David arrived, which was the youngest of all his sons, immediately the Lord told Samuel to pour the oil over the head of David, who was still a young boy. Okay, so when the Lord chooses whether it's a king or a servant, he never looks upon man like man looks upon man. He looks at the heart of a man, which is something man has no access to. That's how he decides who he chooses, based on the heart of the man or woman. Okay? So he is still in the business of choosing his leaders. He is still in the business of choosing his servants. And he does not need you or any man to aid him in that decision. Thank you very much for listening to Spiritual Water. As always, it's a pleasure to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I pray that by reading it from both the King James Version and the New International Version, it makes it easier for my Lord's people to understand that which is being said unto them. In the meantime, may the peace of God be upon thee. May the protection of God compass thee about in all that you love. And may the will of God for your life come from thee. Until the next time, my name is Brenda Guerrero, and thank you very much for listening to Spiritual Water. Enjoy the rest of your day.